if you're going to be objectively masculine, not subjective. So subjectively masculine is, what is a good man? Or what is a real man? And I talk about it quite a bit. Be careful of people that use the phrase, what a real man does. Because there's a lot of guys out there that talk about what a real man does. And I might mostly agree with what they're saying. But if you don't understand how subjective that terminology is to say a real man, hold up, you're not really thinking this through. You need to stop and think about that. There's so many variables in what somebody would consider a real man. So bottom line is, what is objectively masculine? And you could get into physically strong. Men are just physically stronger than women. And so the traits are not always going to be necessarily exclusive to men, but they will be unique to men. So can a woman be physically strong? Sure. But if a woman is not physically strong, do we hold it against her? No, she's still feminine. Whereas a man that is physically weak, for his status, you don't have to be the strongest guy in the gym, setting the bench press record. You don't have to be that guy. But if a guy is relatively weak, he's just not going to be seen as manly. He just isn't.
You're listening to the premier podcast for men who want to not only be better with women, but want to be better men in general. This is the Come On Man podcast. And here's your host, Paul Bauer.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another week of Come On Man. If you haven't done so already, please like, subscribe, hit those notifications. Drop a comment. Any comment will do. Your favorite emoji. Doesn't really matter. If you guys are listening on Spotify, there's a prompt that asks you, what did you like about the show? Fill that out. Let us know what you liked about the show if you're listening on Spotify. If you guys are listening on Apple Podcasts, which majority of people are listening on Apple, leave us a 5-star review. It helps more than you know. And I will actually take the time to write out why you like the show, and I'll read that in an upcoming episode. If you guys are listening to or if you guys are watching live right now on YouTube during the premiere on Monday morning, sound off in the live chat. You know, that helps boost us in the algorithm. Sometimes I'm in there while I'm editing videos and stuff like that. You never know. So sound off in there, say hi. If I'm in there while I'm editing videos, drinking coffee or whatever, I'll say hi back. You know what I mean? Follow me on social media. The links are in the description. I'm on all the good platforms and some of the terrible ones like TikTok. Get on the email list, list.comeonmanpod.com. I will send you some free stickers for your troubles. I have resolved the email problem, okay? I have resolved it. I am moving off of MailChimp. It's trash. I'm migrating all of my existing list over to Gumroad, right? Gumroad's where I host my Practical Law of Attraction course, and they have a mechanism in there built in to manage email lists. The shitty part about it is that you can't import existing lists in. So I'm manually moving people over one at a time. So it's a slow process, but if you are not on the email list, go there now. And it's so easy to sign up. And I actually will get an email now with your mailing address. So I don't have to try to bug people and say, hey, what's a good mailing address, right? It just sends me the mailing address. And then it doesn't keep your mail address. It doesn't keep your mailing address as a part of the email list, right? Because I don't want that. I just want to send you stickers, and then I want to be able to contact you via email if I ever get banned from social media. So it's so much easier now. Go over there, list.comeonmanpod.com. That'll redirect you to Gumroad, where you can get the stickers for free. Just put in 0 where it asks how much do you want to pay? Just put in $0 and hit go. And I will cover the cost of postage to send those. Yes, even international. Okay. If you guys are in Europe, I will send you stickers. Don't worry about it. I got you. All right. Speaking of Gumroad, check out my Practical Law of Attraction course, loa.comeonmanpod.com. That will redirect you over to Gumroad as well, where you can check out my Practical Law of Attraction course. It's about 4 hours long. It's a mindset course. Okay. There's none of this spiritual, quantum physics, vibration stuff. Okay. If you believe in all that stuff, that's cool. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. Okay. My problem with the Practical Law of Attraction, the way most people describe it, is that a lot of people just don't buy it, right? Atheists don't buy it. Agnostics don't buy it. All right. Most people, a vast majority of people, don't understand quantum theory at all, right? We've known about the laws of physics since Isaac Newton, right? So we look at everything as a physical reality. And a lot of what we're learning in quantum physics blows all of our physics, like our physical world ideas, out of the water, right? So a lot of people they can't wrap their brain around it, so they dismiss it. So there's a third explanation for the law of attraction. It's psychology. It's your mind. It's your thinking. It's your subconscious mind. It's your paradigm. All right. Your results are from your actions. Your actions come about from your thoughts. If you can change your thoughts and how you think about things, you can change your actions, which will change your results. Okay. It's not magic. It's not magic at all. I'll teach you all about that. My Practical Law of Attraction course. Once you learn this, it'll change your life forever. It'll change your life forever. Check that out. And then get on the Patreon, patreon.com/ComeOnManPod. You can join Tier 1 now as a free trial. There's an option on Patreon now that they have where I can enable free trials. So you can sign up for the Patreon for a free trial now on Tier 1. Tiers 2 or Tiers 3, you can't do free trials on because that's my coaching, right? That's my coaching. I'm not doing free trials for that. Tier 3 is full right now, right? I've got my max number of one-on-one clients that I want to work with right now. That's full. If you do want to work with me still, though, you can sign up for Tier 2 and we can do the Telegram coaching option where you get unlimited text access to me, right? Text, voice messages, and video messages where, like, let's say you're on a dating app and you need some help, you can send screenshots of it and send it to me over Telegram, and I'll reply back. I'm pretty responsive with that. And then with Tier 1, you get access to our new Telegram group where I'm adding all Telegram members to the group, or at least making it available to them. Whether they join the group or not, that's up to them. It's available though. Okay. I put the link to the group on Patreon itself. So Patreon members, like all Patreon members, as soon as you sign up for this, could go and find that link and join the group. Right. So that's available to you too as well. Monday's episodes, these episodes are ad free for all Patreon members. And you also get access to our monthly happy hour hangouts. That's an actual virtual hangout where we're meeting like this on video over StreamYard, and we're all having drinks and we're just shooting the shit, right? It's not recorded. There's really no censorship, right? Just, don't be a complete fucking asshole. No, have some social calibration, right? Don't show up and start jerking off on camera because we'll kick you out. Like, we don't want to see that. There are some limits, right? But otherwise, don't worry about offending people, right? Think about going to a public bar, okay? That's what this is like, but for men. It's men only. You don't have to worry about the whamming, right? But I do want to specify that because there's always going to be someone that's like, oh, I'm going to go there and really push the limits. She says that there's no rules. There's some nuance to this, okay? Don't be a dipshit. All right. My guest today is a man better known as Graybeard Actual. He's been on the podcast before. His real name is Ray, and he does a lot of videos on how intimacy is not the same as vulnerability and vice versa. Does a lot of stuff on masculinity. A lot of just general red pill type stuff. He's got a really big following on TikTok and on Instagram now. And I thought it would be good to have him back on to talk about Frame, right? Frame's always a fun topic to discuss. And a lot of guys have a hard time wrapping their brains around it. So brought Ray back on. We talk about Frame today, and I will bring you that conversation right after these words. Are you tired of holding back your thoughts and opinions? Ready to let loose with like-minded men? Introducing the ultimate monthly video-based happy hour for men. Join us for an exclusive, unfiltered experience where you can talk about women, cars, movies, and anything else on your mind. Best of all, it's not recorded and there's no censorship. You can freely speak your mind without any worries. All you have to do is join my Patreon at tier number 1, and you'll gain access to this one-of-a-kind gathering. Visit patreon.com/ComeOnManPod. That's patreon.com/ComeOnManPod. Or click the link in the description. It's like the good old days when men would get together and talk about man stuff without being bothered by women. Sometimes guys just need a good group of men to hang out with. It's good for our mental health. Don't miss out on the camaraderie and conversation. Join us today and let your voice be heard. Visit my Patreon page and sign up now. Cheers to freedom of speech and great company. All right, returning to the podcast, my man Ray Gardner, better known worldwide as Graybeard Actual. We're going to be talking about masculine frame today. What's going on, Ray? It's been a while.
Well, just keeping up with all the content, and anything new since the last time we talked is my TikTok used to be huge. Now my Instagram is huge, and I'm kind of getting squatted on TikTok. Who knows how that works, but that's where we're at now.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. You've been doing a lot of Instagram lives lately, and I was going to ask you why Instagram lives instead of TikTok lives.
You know, a lot of people talk about getting shadow banned, and people make fun of it like it's not real. No, that's real. You can go back over. I have about a year's worth of content now. You can see where I would average 10, 15, 20,000 views, and then all of a sudden 2,000. And then, you know, who knows how this happens or why, I don't know. But then Instagram blows up. So I gained 15,000 new followers in 1 week on Instagram, right when they made the big algorithm change, because I was already doing pretty much everything they were looking for. So it blew up. And so, yeah, long story short is Instagram, I used to not pay any attention to Instagram whatsoever. I mean, I would post stuff just to have a presence there, but then I didn't really think much about it. And so, yeah, now Instagram's where I'm at.
Gotcha. Okay.
Where people are watching, right?
What's that?
You have to go where people are watching.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's one of the reasons why I haven't left TikTok completely, because like you said, my the shadow bans are real. I have a guy that edits clips for me. Shout out Michael, because he's probably watching. He edits clips for me, and we got in this conversation about it. He's like, shadow bans aren't real. You know, you just gotta, do this and this, and it's all about engaging content. I'm like, dude, you can't tell me they're not real, because if you look at my second TikTok account, which is, my @ComeOnManPod account, I got up to like 23,000 followers and it just hit a ceiling, just boom, hit a wall. And then if you look at the views on it, it's like double-digit views, triple-digit views. I'll get like 100 views on a video. And so I started a new account, and that same video will get 25,000 views. It's like you can't tell me that it's not a real thing.
Yeah. And so, well, a lot of people just never make great content, and they go, I'm shadow banned. Like, no, you're not. You don't make good content. Right. So fair enough. But it's a little bit harder to discern if you just went back through my old material. But I literally went from 20,000 views per video. This is probably late last summer, and overnight it went to, I'm not kidding, I'm not exaggerating, 5 or 6. Literally.
5 or 6 views.
Yeah. And so I got onto all my followers, and I started like, hey, share this, please, break this, whatever. And so it goes up and down. And an interesting thing to note is when TikTok was, and I don't know if this happened for everybody, but for me, when TikTok was in front of Congress, a few weeks ago, a month ago, whatever it was, my views shot up. So I don't know if maybe they just kind of took some of those restraints off. But the whole week that TikTok was in front of Congress testifying, my views went, right? And so now, in the last, 2-3 weeks, I've had one video on TikTok. It's about 33,000 now. That same video on Instagram is 516,000 last I looked.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a big difference there. And the point is like, if you see that big of a gap between views and platforms, somebody's throttling you back, and who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, because
I see other so-called controversial stuff out there that's not being throttled back. So I'm not trying to say I understand how all it works, but
yeah,
I could go some really high views to really low. So it is what it is.
What is the Instagram algorithm looking for? Because I have not been able to crack that nut.
when they started talking, this is a month or so back now, when they started talking about the changes, they said there's one thing I don't do, which is to film in their in Instagram. And I always,
their camera sucks. Yeah.
And they all do. And so I always film on my phone, and then I put it in Adobe Rush and I edit and I publish. But they were saying, 2 stories in the morning, 2 stories in the afternoon, 2 stories in the evening. And so I started doing a lot of memes, and that really works.
Oh yeah, I noticed my memes will take off. Yeah.
And then it was 3 to 5 hashtags, and then I'm trying to remember 3 to 5 hashtags, story twice in the morning, afternoon, etc. And then there was something else I'm forgetting, and then film in their format, which I'm not going to do. But the point is I was already, they just want original. Then everybody wants that. They just want original. I don't know if you stitch a few seconds of somebody else's video, if that really counts, but they don't want you just replaying other people's stuff. And so you do original, you post X amount of times a day, do your stories, et cetera, et cetera. And I was already doing all of that except for filming in their format. And in that week, literally 15,000 new followers in a week. It just shot up.
Wow. One thing I've been doing lately that seems to be helping a lot, and I learned this from my video editor, Michael, though, is that you can use AI to generate descriptions and hashtags for your content that's SEO optimized, because TikTok loves SEO now.
Yes.
And then you can also use it to generate like a hook. So like flash up, title of the video. That's the hook of the video. You can get AI to generate that. And I'm like, oh, that's actually been working out pretty good for me. Just having AI write everything. I'm terrible. All right, let's talk about Masculine Frame though. People tune in to get Instagram advice. So I'm reading this book right now. It's Ryan Stone's book on frame, and he describes it as a tetrahedron, and he lists various pillars. Have you read that book yet?
I know of it, but I'm not ready yet. No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I highly recommend it. It's really good so far. Although, basically, like it's more about like self-actualization for men, right? Like that's the whole concept of it. And one of the things that he's trying to tell guys is just basic stuff. Like you need to have good hygiene and stuff like that, right? And one of the things that he talks about is like fashion for men. And one of the things that he shits on is graphic tees. So I gave him a bunch of shit. I was like, you could take my graphic tees from my cold dead hands, Ryan.
I think graphic tees would come down to what your physique is, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
And not that, a Justin Waller or somebody with a, good physique, you put on a button down shirt and a suit, you're going to look good. That's fine. And I years ago, I've been in a situation where nobody knew me but for shorts and t-shirts. And then for whatever reason, there's like a funeral one day, it's a long story, but I showed up in a suit and tie and all the girls were like, woo, And so you can have an impact with certain kinds of dress, and I know you've talked about this before, you just have to have a style. Mm-hmm. So I have me personally, I have a very laid back style. I'm 6 foot tall. I'm about 197. I'm muscular, tiny waist, broad shoulders, all that. I've been doing the work. And so I can wear a pair of loose fitting Billabong shorts and a shirt that kind of shows off the chest a little bit and some sandals. There you go. Mm-hmm. And it works. At a wedding? No. Yeah. Right. But yeah, so just kind of have, a uniform of sorts, have a look. And I'm pretty sure you've mentioned this in some of your posts recently. It's like, droopy jeans and a shirt that doesn't fit right. It's too big. It's too whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't do that. I mean, first of all, be in shape. And then if you're in shape, you want to show that shape off. Right. Yeah. That just makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's dependent on where you're at and the station in life and, the event or whatever. But look good. Hygiene. How do you not know that? Not you, but obviously.
Dude, well, you were in the military. I remember one time I was in the Navy. I've told this story on the podcast before. I had a guy in my watch rotation that just had the worst hygiene, and my
you mentioned the last podcast.
Yeah. I had to tell this guy, like, dude, you got to shower every day, man. Like it's like such an awkward conversation to have to bring up with people, but like some guys just don't know, it's kind of sad, but it is what it is. So let me ask you this. If you had to give frame a definition, how would you define it?
So that is, I got my little notes over here. I get this question a lot because I'll mention frame. I'll, in my content, I'll say if a guy is in his frame, et cetera, et cetera. And then guys are like, what's that mean?
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many small variables and details. And so I've tried to break it down, and it's not so much of a 1, 2, 3 kind of a list, but the very obvious foundation is, and this is the phrase I use a lot, is to be objectively masculine. If you're going to be objectively masculine, not subjective. So subjectively masculine is, what is a good man?
Mm-hmm.
Or what is a real man? And I talk about it quite a bit. Avoid people, okay, maybe not avoid, but be careful of people that use the phrase, what a real man does.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of guys out there that talk about what a real man does. And I might mostly agree with what they're saying. But if you don't understand how subjective that terminology is to say a real man, hold up, you're not really thinking this through. You need to stop and think about that.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many variables in what somebody would consider a real man. So bottom line is, what is objectively masculine? And you could get into, physically strong. Men are just physically stronger than women. And so the traits are not always going to be necessarily exclusive to men, but they will be unique to men. So can a woman be physically strong? Sure. But if the woman is not physically strong, do we hold it against her? No, she's still feminine. Mm-hmm. Whereas a man that is physically weak, for his status, you don't have to be the strongest guy in the gym, setting the bench press record. You don't have to be that guy. But if a guy is relatively weak, he's just not going to be seen as manly. He just isn't. Mm-hmm. Right? And so, like, even on things like courage, can women and even children be courageous? Sure. But that's exceptional. The strong woman, physically strong woman, is exceptional. The courageous woman that would charge into a dangerous situation to save whoever, that's exceptional and it's commendable. But if she doesn't do it and she runs away, nobody faults her for that. Whereas the man that is physically weak or lacks courage, I joked around on, I don't know if you know Jason Smith, I did his podcast a couple of weeks ago, and we got into this, and I said, there's surveillance cameras everywhere, right? And so you, as the sole man there, wherever you're at, and some bad stuff happens, it's a natural disaster, it's a robbery, it's whatever, it's you and other women and children. You don't want that surveillance camera marking your legacy as outrunning the women and children. You will be, right? So the man needs to be physically strong. He needs to be courageous. He needs all these, I could keep going on the list. He needs to be in stoic command of his emotions and so on and so on. But the bottom line is, if you're not objectively masculine, how are you going to have masculine frame? Mm-hmm. And then from there, if you going on from there, you have to be objectively masculine. Now, how to hold that frame being masculine. And this is obviously a Rollo term, but mental point of origin. Are you your own mental point of origin? And I've made a few posts on this. And the example that most people seem to get is the guy, he has a gym routine. He gets a new girlfriend. Now he's sleeping over. Well, me personally, I get up on gym days at 3:30. I'm at the gym by 4, so on and so on. If I get a new girlfriend and she's like wanting me to sleep in, and let's face it, sex is a strong potential there because, hey, we're cuddling or whatever. If the guy that will change his gym schedule so he can sleep in with the girlfriend versus just, no, Monday is leg day, 4:05 a.m., I will be on the squat rack, right? And so men start to make these changes thinking it's no big deal. No, it is a big deal. I'm going to the gym that early for a reason because it works for me. And I've done this for years. And so what I don't do is make these fundamental changes in my life to accommodate her, right? And so whether it's being physically strong, objectively masculine, or mental point of origin, and then ultimately abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset. And that's the notes I made earlier. That's what I was trying to think on is the 3 things that go into masculine frame is obviously be masculine. That's the objective masculinity. Secondarily, are you your own mental point of origin? And number 3 is what is your mindset? Scarcity versus abundance. Who are you? What's your confidence level? What's going on? And I think all of that, and you could talk about any one of those subtopics for an hour, but all of those things go into make what masculine frame really is.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I would say if I were to define it, it would kind of be multifaceted, just like you were talking about, right? Some people sort of think of frame as just being in control of your emotions, being stoic or whatever. I
do think that's the most important part.
It's definitely a part of it, right? If you can't control your own emotions.
What do the feminists attack most? What do the feminists attack most commonly? And we're supposed to be emotionally open, vulnerable, and those other things. It's the emotional reaction that a man has that defines how we react, really, right? That's what defines how we behave in this world. And so if they can convince enough men to be more emotionally open and vulnerable and all this other stuff, that affects how we react to things and how we interact with the women in our lives. And so I didn't, really totally go down that path on the stoic command of emotion, as I always call it. But I think that's the number one thing, to be honest, even beyond physical strength and everything else, is how do we react to life in general? It could be a problem at work, a problem with the woman. If I'm in stoic command of my emotions, that means above all else, I am in my frame. She gives me a shit test. Am I in command of my emotions? I can handle that shit test. At work, somebody's stressing me out or some bullshit thing. Am I in command of my emotions? Am I losing my shit, or am I cowering? Either way, right? Do I just meet that stress with just a good, even-keeled level response? And it's the same with women. Just don't lose your shit. Don't show your emotions. You're a sailor. You keep your military bearing, right? And just don't lose your cool. You stay in control. So if you're going to keep your frame, I'm in control of my emotions. You cannot get me upset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I definitely think that's super important. I also look at it like it's your worldview and also how you view yourself too, right? And anything that sort of challenges your worldview or how you see yourself, like let's say a woman is shit testing you, right? Because now that's sort of a challenge on how you view yourself sometimes. If you sort of react to it like it's like anything that's outside of your frame, like it's amusing, it becomes pretty easy to not fall into someone else's frame, because as soon as you start getting upset by that and reacting, now you're like in your head thinking about, well, are they right? And it's like, man, when I was in first grade, I used to have a teacher, Mrs. Rundle. Shout out to Mrs. Rundle. She's still around. I would go up to her, like little kids do, and be like, oh, so-and-so called me this name. They called me, a poopy face or whatever. She'd be like, are you a poopy face? Right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, no. Well, then why are you mad about it? It's sort of, that's how I look at it. Right. It's like anything that's outside of how you view yourself or how you view the world.
And you can even think of it like in terms, because I know you get a lot of hate too, because you say controversial things.
Yeah.
Think about it just online and the people that come at you in the comment section, and you have to stop, even smart, rational people. We have to stop and remind ourselves, I'm talking to some purple-haired feminist dude in his mom's basement, and I'm going to sit there and waste calories, okay, whatever. Just be in control of your emotions. And that's half the battle right there, if not more.
Oh yeah. Yeah. What I've found with that sort of thing is I just like to ask more questions.
Yeah.
And it's more like, man, it's almost like a form of fogging, right? Where they'll say something like, oh, you've got little dick energy, right? I'll just reply back, I have little dick energy? ? Right? And then just keeps them talking, right? It keeps them getting in their feels. It's just kind of a funny thing to do. I think.
Yeah,
keeps that engagement going too.
The most common thing in the comments, and I cut my teeth debate wise. I was never in the debate club, and I mentioned to somebody earlier today even that pre-social media, the internet was the Wild West. We were on these internet forums, and some of them would really blow up and would be really big. And I got in some hellacious debate battles that would go on for days and even, well, not weeks, but it would go on for a while. And that sounds kind of silly, but at the time, I'm in my 20s and I'm very logical. I'm very straightforward, and I always try to present everything so logically. So it's bulletproof, right? But when you're 20 something and just kind of fired up, then I caught myself, or at least other people caught me. I would get into these arguments and I would overstate something. I would speak with 100% certainty about something that I really wasn't 100% certain of. And so the point is it did help sharpen me to be better in an argument. And then I don't remember if I mentioned it last time, but my background is I'm apostolic Pentecostal backslidden preacher. And that's kind of where I get my speaking ability and where I came from all this. And the reason I even started getting into the whole masculinity question is because I was in church and I saw this lessening of masculinity in church in general. And so to the whole point is all this over time helped me sharpen my skills that maybe not even debate, because nobody really debates, they just yell at each other. But when I get into my comment section and I get some really weird stuff, I understand I'm not going to change this person's mind. I understand that most of these people are people I would never engage with in real life. However, my followers are reading these comments, and my replies to these people get dozens, if not hundreds sometimes of likes. So the point is, I feel like I'm educating, or at least edifying, the people that are reading these things, right? And so the standard comment that I get is, I will say ABC, and that provokes an emotional reaction in somebody, and they come back with XYZ, and I go, no, I never mentioned XYZ. You're interjecting that into the conversation. It doesn't make any sense. Then we go back and forth, and I'm in this fruitless conversation of trying to explain logic to some irrational whatever. But the point is there are people that are edified by that, because I go back later and look at how many people like that, those comments, my replies, and people get something from it. So they see that I said X in a comment or a post, and then the other person just goes off on the rails, so on and so on. And you just stay on topic. Just stay on topic. Don't let them get you upset. Don't let them do all that dumb shit. Stay on topic. What was said, what was not said.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This sort of is a good segue to the next question I have, which is, how does having a strong masculine frame benefit men in their personal and professional lives? I mean, clearly we use it when we're dealing with haters online, not just with women. So how would you say it could benefit guys in all areas of their life?
Well, I think everything comes down to confidence, right? And it's easy to be confident if you're physically, whatever, imposing and so on. What I started to notice when I was late 20s, early 30s, and really started to try to kind of study men in general, successful men, how I could be successful. And the main thing I walked away with was successful men knew how to pull the plug on a situation. Let's call it a negotiation in business or whatever it is. They knew how to draw back and not be hostage to what was happening. And so I had a revelation at the time. It's too much to get into the details, but it was really about being confident in your own skin. So if a man, young or old, if you can be confident in your own skin and you know what you're about, and I know some of this can come off as kind of like empty motivational talk, but it's real. So if I know what I'm about, I'm confident in my own skin, whether it's at work or wherever, and I know I'm right, and I know what the situation is. My day job, it's a very high pressure, a lot of deadlines. It's a lot going on. And so people fire back at me every time a sale is lost, which isn't every day, thank God. But it happens, and you don't freak out, you don't whatever. I can come back and say, here's the record, here's what really happened. And so I'm really good at my job because I don't get flustered. And I think that really comes down to, am I comfortable in my own skin? Do I know what I'm doing? Am I confident in who I am and where I'm at? Now that doesn't happen overnight. If you're 22 or 25 or 32, depending on where you're at, but that's a goal to get to. That's what you have to get to is, am I competent and confident in what I'm doing? And if I'm not, why not? Fix it. Make yourself so. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so the key to masculine frame in general, outside of dating and romance, is, are you competent? Do you know what you're doing? Why are you there? And then you translate over into the romantic that gets into scarcity and abundance mindset and different things. But I think it's kind of a confidence in who you are and where you're at, that confidence in your being comfortable in your own skin kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Speaking of confidence, how can men develop and cultivate a strong sense of confidence, do you think?
My go-to on everything, and I recently found some actual scientific evidence on this, activity. And so, of course, go to the gym. Why wouldn't you go to the gym? Go to the damn gym.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes back to even me being in my late teens. I was a personal trainer. I was in the Marine Corps. I was just a gym rat. And I realized that when men are active, they're happier, right? Mm-hmm. And then Joe Rogan posted something a couple of weeks ago, whatever it was. There's a study out of South Australia, one of the universities, that basically shows how exercise, and then they get really deep into hormones and everything else that I already understand about. But exercise in general is 1.5 times more effective than therapy and or medications for depression. Right? So if a man's going to do something, and I haven't posted on it recently, but I have before, that kind of my opinion, kind of backed up by some of the research, is if you get to the gym and you make a really good physique, and it doesn't happen overnight, and I'm not afraid of sounding cocky or whatever, but at the same time, I don't want to just come across as being, using hyperbole, but I'm telling you, I'm 6 foot tall. I'm 197 pounds. I have a really good physique. I walk into a room and people stop and look at me. That right there is confidence. It just is. You walk in, everybody goes, who's this guy? Right. And then knowing how to fight. Pick your art. I've mentioned I like boxing more than jiu-jitsu, but fine, whatever. And I've done both, but I get a lot of hate on that. Like, oh, this is better. It's Chevy versus Ford, whatever.
And those jiu-jitsu guys, they like sucking each other's dicks. I swear to God. They love talking about how jiu-jitsu is the best. It's like, come on.
And jiu-jitsu is very useful. It really is.
This guy's place. But
I started at 21 as a bouncer in kind of a high traffic, high volume bar. And if you can, stay off the ground, please. Just stay off the ground. He has a buddy and you're trying to set an arm bar and he's smashing a fucking long neck bottle over your head. If you can stay off the ground, just stay off the ground. But the point is, learn how to fight, learn how to do something. Yeah. Do jiu-jitsu, fight, whatever. Get in the gym, make a fantastic physique. I don't mean just, I don't have a belly anymore. No. You need blow your traps up. I mean, I should take my shirt off, whatever. Blow your traps up. If you're going to work out, you're going to work out and you're going to get a good physique. So it's not like this is crazy advice, but really focus on doing some deep, heavy dumbbell shrugs where you're bringing that up. If you get a big neck and blow your traps up and get your delts going, I'm telling you what, it just makes such a huge difference. And then learn how to throw a punch. Learn how to at least avoid an armbar. Mm-hmm. Right? You don't have to be a black belt in jiu-jitsu. You don't have to be golden gloves boxing, but know how to throw a punch, know how to slip a punch. Don't be all wild. The reason I even originally got into boxing myself was as a 21-year-old bartender and bouncer. I was in the Marine Corps with some guys from New York that were golden glove boxers. Mm-hmm. And I would watch a smaller guy that knew how to move. He'd be, and this big guy just throwing haymakers, and that little guy, whoop, 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 and really fucked the larger guy up. And I go, I need to box. That was pretty impressive. I need to do that. And so, how to put all that into action. I, kind of maybe got off on a rail there, but if you're going to avoid anxiety, if you're going to avoid depression, if you're going to, what's the good word for it? If you're going to engage this masculine frame, you need to do masculine things. Mm-hmm. You need to walk through a public place and be confident. Not that you can kick everybody's ass, but you need to be confident in that you can take care of yourself. If somebody's going to really mess with me, they're going to have a hard time about it.
This might be a good time to plug John Fitch has a practical self-defense course, and I've got a link to it in the description. I don't talk about it enough, but there's a link in the description. If you
I know who he is. I've not watched his stuff, but he's a fighter, so he's going to say basically the same thing.
He's former MMA champion. Yeah. You know, he was he was in UFC, he was in Bellator, you know, dude knows what he's talking about. He's
And
a good dude too.
confidence. So I taught 2 years at a private Christian school years ago, and I was the only guy there. Well, not the only guy. I was the only fit young guy there. And they wanted me to I taught other things. I taught science and algebra, but they wanted me to teach gym class, of course, whatever. And I took all these sheltered, overly, I'm not anti-church. I'm still a Christian. But this is one of those churches, they had their boys so sheltered. And I knew that there's some good athletes in here. There's some good young men. And they were just so sheltered. And I went out, and this is Arizona, so I could do this kind of all weather. And I went and got, a mobile stand for the heavy bag and the speed bag and all that. And I taught these guys how to box a little bit, at least. I taught them how to throw a punch, and we put the gloves on, and I teach them. We'd start slow motion, how to slip that, how to move without being crazy, and really wasting all your energy just moving around. And I had 3 different guys in the next couple of years after they graduated. They come up and they said, yeah, that helped. All 3 of them never got in a fight. The guys gave me these stories. What they said was, short version is, they get into these situations where somebody's challenging them, and they were not timid. Right. They're your adrenaline's up. They're thinking, oh my, this is going to happen. But they had enough confidence to stand the ground and go, all right, I got this. And the guy's back down,
Mm-hmm.
So to your original questions, like, what's a guy do? You need to be active. You really need to be active. Get your hormones checked. Where's your testosterone compared to your age, all that. Be active, be learning how to fight, be starting your new business, be whatever it is you're doing. If a man is not active, he's dying. There's no in between. You're moving forward, or you're in a state of decay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Shifting gears a little bit, what role does self-awareness play in maintaining masculine frame?
Well, people in general, men and women, we're going to lie to ourselves, right? And so self-awareness, when I think about self-awareness, is like all right, here's a side thing. I'm a big fan of the Big 5 personality test, but I never talk about my content because it's too easy to take one of those tests and lie to yourself. Every single time in my personal life that I've ever encouraged somebody to take that Big 5 personality test, they come back and they're answering the questions in such a way, they're answering the questions as they want to see themselves, and they're not being honest with themselves. Right? And so self-awareness is just really being, who am I? What am I doing here? Right? And so if you take something like the Big 5, and I'm not into all personality tests, all that Briggs-Myers, that's all crap. That's like modern day horoscope bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's chick crack.
Yeah, it is. Totally. But I'm a fan of the Big 5 if a person is self-aware and they're not prone to lying to themselves. And so the bottom line is, why did you fail? Anybody? Why did you fail at your latest business, your job, your promotion, your entrepreneurial thing, whatever? We talked about shadow banning earlier, right? Mm-hmm. So why am I really shadow banned? Can I look back at my content and see where I had a lot of views? If you can't, you're not shadow banned. Your content's just not, whatever. And so self-awareness is really just saying, I'm going to be perfectly honest with myself. I'm going to own whatever thing. All right. So I've been stuck in middle management in corporate America for 15, 20 years. Mm-hmm. And I have to own the fact that I'm an assertive person. I'm very competent. I get raises and promotions, but I'm always right below that vice president level. and they always tell me, hey, you're in line for that vice president job. And I know I ain't getting it because I don't play well with others. And that's not me like, oh, I'm a rebel. No, if you're going to be in corporate world, you have to play the corporate game. And I don't do it very well.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to own the fact that I'm at least, somewhat to blame. And so I'm doing what I'm doing now. I'm never going to make that vice president level because I just don't. I work at it, man. I try, but the point is I have to own the fact that I don't have that kind of personality, and it's not blaming them. I just don't fit in well with that crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't be self-aware. I can't say they're not fair or it's not fair or, they gave me the shaft. I can't say that. I have to understand that I've not always played well with others, and I blow people off, and I make arguments out of things I probably shouldn't make arguments out of. And now I'm never going to make vice president.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of look at that sort of situation, like when it comes to, relationships, because a lot of guys in the red pill space think that the whole idea of red pill is about holding women accountable, and these bitches ain't shit and stuff like that. But it's like when you're truly self-aware, you realize like I can't change women, or I can't change like what women do. I can only change myself.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. I can't. So holding them accountable, like, what does that even mean? It's like I can only hold myself accountable and make actions and changes in myself to get the results I want. I can't change what these chicks are doing.
I had an old post from I think late last summer where I made a thing about body count. And I said, men don't ask about body count.
Yeah.
Is it important? Yeah, technically, but you're never going to know. And the short takeaway is I was telling guys, don't ask. Mm-hmm. Number one, you're dating her, you're going out with her. So presumably you want to get with her or date her or whatever. And you're going to ask a very offensive question that, number one, is offensive. Number two, makes you look insecure. Whether that's insecurity or not, it's not the point. That's how they're going to read it, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't remember what it was. This was two or three weeks ago. You had posted something, not about body count, but something along those same lines of not questioning. I should have looked that up before I thought of it. Anyway, the point is like, if you're going to throw yourself out there and ask these questions, you just look like
it was probably the video about the guy who called the woman up on the phone. It was like, why'd you give me your number if you didn't want me to call? Like, that's dumb as hell and all this stuff. Yeah. And I was like, why are you guys putting this out on the internet? Because it's not going to change her behavior. What she's going to do is take your recording and then play it on TikTok for clout and make you look like a dipshit. Like, it's not going to do anything, Yeah,
that was the post. And I thought, and that made me go back and repost that post I had on body count. And it's like, guys, you can't always confront things like that. It just makes you look silly. Mm-hmm. And to the larger point is engage with people. This works for, at work and wherever, but especially in relationships, is just get to know them, learn who they are. Right. Mm-hmm. And so you're 2-3 weeks in and you sit and listen to these stories. And if she has something to hide, within 3 weeks, you're going to hear enough of her basic stories. If there's something to hide, these stories, you're going to be able to connect the dots. And I've had this happen a number of times. I've been divorced for 3 years now. And you just stop and listen, and they connect these stories for you. Mm-hmm. And if you're always like asking dumb questions, what's your body count? Well, they can tell you anything. That's stupid. Mm-hmm. Or like the voicemail thing that you got on. It's like, why are you even doing that? Just stop. Just let these people be who they are. Let them show you their real selves. If you keep challenging them on certain things, they're going to put a guard up. They're going to hide. Whatever. Just shut up and listen and let them tell you what they're all about. That's all it comes down to.
Yeah. Yeah. It also goes back to what we were talking about with self-awareness. It's like, you need to ask yourself, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to call the girl out, for one? Two, what result do you think is going to happen with it? Do you think she's going to change her behavior? because
Well, that's stoic command of emotions.
yeah,
Because anybody that really stop and think about that for a hot second, she's not going to change because you left a nasty, insecure, goofy voicemail. You're just venting.
yeah,
You're just going off.
you're acting like a woman.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very effeminate approach, and you just want to get your 2 cents in, and you're going to leave that voicemail and think that you feel justified. But I told her,
Yeah,
you look like an ass.
you're gonna make yourself feel better, maybe, but it's not gonna change the situation, and you're just gonna look like an asshat, you know.
Yeah.
So it's
And I don't want to encourage anybody to just reach out and be mean or get back or vengeance. That's not a healthy mindset. But if you really want to think about it, if you really want to stick the dagger in and stick it to him, just never talk to him again.
there you go.
Right?
Right.
You
Time and attention is currency. And
Yeah.
if you remove it, that's your leverage.
You just disappear. There's nothing worse than no attention whatsoever.
Yeah. Especially for the whammon. So a part of frame, in my opinion, is setting and enforcing boundaries. How can men effectively set and enforce personal boundaries within a relationship?
This is where I always draw on Rollo quite a bit. And I have my own content. But when I specifically cite somebody, I always have to, say that. But Rollo's so good on how's he say it? Shit. Demonstrate, don't explicate, right?
Yeah.
Demonstrate, don't explicate. And so I had been married for 22 years, got divorced July of 2020. So I'm coming up on that 3-year mark. And I never totally lost my frame or anything, but you kind of get in a vibe of and especially in a bad marriage, you're just trying to make things work. When I started dating, and again, I wasn't totally over the top simping kind of stuff, but I would catch myself, and even in the moment, right? Because I didn't find Red Pill, Rollo, all that until I'd been single for maybe a year, and it was really good, obviously. But to the point is I would catch myself confronting, like, dating a woman and she's still following her ex 5 or 6 weeks later, and she's telling me she loves me. I'm like, no, hold up, and that's what's turned into one of the phrases I use a lot. If I'm dating somebody, if any man is dating somebody past a certain time frame, and she loves you, all this other stuff, but thoughts of me are not crowding out thoughts of her or him, sorry, right? And so the whole point is as you get into these kinds of things and you start to address your frame, how do I hold that frame up? How's this work? Right. So am I going to say, hey, quit following that guy? No.
Mm-hmm.
And I make memes on this all the time because it needs to be repeated. If she's following somebody she shouldn't be following, or she's doing something she shouldn't be doing, let her do that. And so am I ever going to confront, and how do I hold frame when I see that boundaries are being broken? I'm trying to think of where boundaries might be more overtly expressed. I might be leaving something out, but the way I do it and the way I think of it is boundaries don't necessarily need to be overtly expressed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's exceptions, I'm leaving it out. But generally speaking is the boundaries are you crazy for me? Are you into me? Are we dating for 5 or 6 weeks and you're not going to post me on Facebook and you're still following an ex-boyfriend? Mm-hmm. That doesn't need to be an express boundary. That just shows me who you are and where I stand in your life. And so, yeah, I'm probably leaving something out that you could do some more express upfront boundaries, but generally speaking, just let them be who they're going to be. And if they violate it, case by case basis, but let them violate it once or twice and then go, hold up, this isn't working.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a time and a place to express, boundaries verbally, because, you also can't expect women to read your mind either. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. If a woman's doing something like that, like following an ex-boyfriend or something like that, and And then you just like, you remove your attention from her too. I mean, that's, be like, okay, well, if you're following that guy,
Yep.
then just peace out. Like that's letting her know that there's a boundary and that there's a consequence for violating it. Yeah, I could see that.
And when I first started dating, after the divorce, I never totally violated that, but I would catch myself going down that road where I'm saying, hey, should you be doing this or whatever? And then we're in this kind of negotiation thing of, well, okay, if I quit following this guy, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, now I don't know if you really, so just step back and wait and give it a few weeks. Again, a lot of case by case kind of situations there, but maybe it's not totally exclusive or whatever's going on. But the point is, give it a few more weeks. And she's like, oh, I love you, blah, blah, blah. And she's still following that guy. All right, I'm not going to discuss it. I'm out. We're good.
Yeah. So that's what, like Ryan Stone says that a lot too. Like, don't talk, walk, that's sort of like an actions speak louder than words thing. Can you discuss the importance of assertiveness and how men can develop this trait?
Well, so there's a overlap with assertiveness and aggressiveness, and kind of what I mentioned about my own workplace scenario. Not recently, but I have in the past kind of violated the aggression and assertiveness. And so bottom line though is assertiveness tells people in a romantic relationship or the workplace, right? Assertiveness tells everybody, you're not going to take shit. I'm going to take care of what I need to do. And that signals that, number one, you're competent, even if you're not actually. It signals that at least you believe in yourself. And so in a relationship, and that can go both ways in workplace and relationship, but like in a relationship, if I'm assertive, I'm signaling to the woman I'm competent and confident enough that I'm not going to let anybody take advantage of us. We're safe because, and it is true. I know it gets a lot of weird play, but women need to feel safe, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I'm assertive, I'm making her feel safe. And then like for a parallel in the workplace, and I mentioned I'm in a pretty high pressure job, is that when I kick back, they're not going to, my superiors are never going to get rid of me. I get my raises and promotions and whatever. Why? Because when they know they're wrong, I don't sit there and tuck my tail and roll into it, right? I kick back and I go, no, this is not how that works. And so either way, workplace, relationship, life in general, when you're assertive, well, it ties in, I don't know if you even did that purposely, but that ties in perfectly to your last thing on boundaries. So you cannot have boundaries without being assertive. Mm-hmm. Right? And even going back to, 47 minutes ago is I'm going to be objectively masculine. I'm going to set these boundaries for who I am as a man and to be masculine. And then as I move into my masculine frame, how am I going to maintain that? Will I have assertiveness? I have boundaries and so on. And so, yeah, again, don't know if you did that purposely, but you can't have boundaries without being assertive. Mm-hmm. And I have my window open. That helicopter's too loud.
Yeah, like what's going on? They coming for you? You got
it's not black. It's not black. It's a medevac.
They're not the black helicopters. Okay.
But so assertiveness ties into having boundaries, and you can't have one without the other, right?
Yeah. Have you read When I Say No, I Feel Guilty?
No.
Okay. I'm reading it because on the old Married Red Pill subreddit, they have a sidebar series, right? Where recommended reading, roll those books on there. The Married Man Sex Life Primer by Athol Kay is on there. And this book, it's by Dr. Manuel J. Smith, I think. And it's all about communicating effectively, or effective assertive communication, right? And a lot of it is about identifying when people are trying to manipulate you. And a lot of that is, people they don't realize that they're manipulating you. But anytime someone says, you should do this, you shouldn't be telling guys this, that's technically manipulative communication. It's a manipulative communication style. And so this book teaches you how to recognize it and then very clearly assert what it is that you want or what you're trying to do. And it's actually a pretty fascinating book. It's a lot of guys should read it.
I'll look that up. But as you're saying that, what makes me think of is I have some highly manipulative people in my family.
Yes.
I have an older sister, and to be fair, we love each other, but we don't get along. Short version. Always take care of family, right? She would claw your eyes out if you said something bad about me, but she doesn't like me, right? But she's a highly manipulative person. And so I literally grew up with an older sibling that was constantly manipulating. Short version to what you were saying, though, is you can start to recognize, and here's what messes me up, or used to mess me up, was you start to think that they really think that were they clever enough to calculate that out. And I think to what you just said, I think what most people, men or women, need to understand is instinctively manipulative people, they may be dumb or smart, whatever, they're not calculating that out. They're not that clever. And you kind of touched on a little bit. It just comes out. They don't even realize they're doing it, but they're going to ask certain questions or point the conversation a certain way, and they're just going to be manipulative. And you just have to recognize, well, it's like I mentioned in the comments earlier, talking about comment section on the socials is I will say a certain thing and somebody else responds with something I didn't really even say, but it trigger an emotional response and you kind of get off on the side path. So that's what manipulative people do is you can say, whatever, I had a hard day at work or my girlfriend this or whatever. And they go, oh, did that bother you? My sister will do that, she's a smart girl. She's not stupid, but here's the thing. She's not calculating that out. So I can say, oh, my ex-wife did this or my girlfriend did that. And she'll go, oh, did that bother you? What brought that about? And and I know better now, but if you take the bait on that next question, 5 minutes later, you're defending yourself and you're like, where'd this come from? How'd this happen?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the examples the chapter I'm listening to now, the guy's talking about this gal whose mom always wants her to come over to her house. And she always feels like she has to come over to her mom's house for dinner on the weekends, and she's like, I just don't want to go over there. And so her mom calls her and she starts doing this assertive communication stuff. And her mom's like, well, I really want you to come over this weekend. And she's like, oh, I'm sure you do want me to come over this weekend, but I've got things to do. I'm not going to come over. Yeah. And then her mom's like, did we say something to make you upset? And all of a sudden just like, this whole woe is me. That was like, dude, that is my mom. Spot on. My mom is that person who just makes you feel like, oh, you're just picking on me. And
gaslighting, it's like narcissism. Gaslighting gets overused a lot. Yeah. But that's gaslighting. And that's probably two things, and they overlap if you read some books on logic. But gaslighting and the straw man argument, they both overlap. One's kind of the other, and it happens all the time. And what you're doing is you're dealing with somebody else's emotional reaction to what you just said or did. And they have this emotional reaction. And if people aren't thinking, and I talked a little bit about this in my content, and it's kind of hard. It's not a red meat kind of subject. You're not going to get a lot of clicks on it. But if we could teach more men in general, like this is the stoic command of emotion for masculinity, just calm the fuck down. Don't have a reaction. Yeah. And so your girlfriend, your mom, your mother-in-law, whoever says blah, 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 and you go, man, there you go. You just don't react, just like nothing, just whatever. Yeah.
Man, the other day, I forgot to invite my mom to some kind of event that my kids were doing. And she was like, oh, you hate me and all this stuff. And she starts getting all mad. And I finally just asked her, I was like, Mom, what's really bugging you? Cause I know it's not this. What's really bugging you? And then of course she just like, emotionally dumped all of her shit on me. I was like, I knew it. It had nothing to do with this, this thing. But yeah, it's all these tools are so good for guys to understand and realize, because they'll just be able to handle things so much better, and it all comes down to their frame, building
Yeah.
up their frame.
So,
Let me ask. Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, let me maybe ask one more question about frame, and then we could probably wrap this up. Oh, this is a good one, because I think that we touched on this the last time you were on, and this is also like when it's sort of like your bread and butter. Can you discuss the relationship between vulnerability and maintaining a masculine frame?
All right. So the funny thing is, I knew the vulnerability topic was out there a year ago when I started my social media, but I had no idea it was such a touchstone for the feminist left. So for people that haven't heard me or you talk about this, vulnerability, look it up. We're talking thesaurus, dictionary, all these different things. Vulnerability is a type of weakness. That's not an opinion. Vulnerability is a type of weakness. So you get into the thesaurus, the dictionary, so on and so on. There's no negative connotation to intimacy. What does intimacy have to do with it? 99% of the time I ask men, how does vulnerability fit into any of this? And what they wind up describing to me is intimacy, a man being emotionally intimate, right? And so I go, well, you just described intimacy. You didn't describe vulnerability. And they go, right? And so the point is, this is all this kind of Orwellian manipulation of language, right? And so to your question of, how's vulnerability play into frame, we all have vulnerabilities. We're all men. We're all human beings. We have weaknesses. But what a man does, and I have dozens of posts on this, what a man does is he recognizes a weakness, which a vulnerability is a type of weakness. He recognizes his weakness and he overcomes it. And when I make this argument, again, I get guys arguing about intimacy. No, there's nothing about vulnerability or intimacy or anything that they don't fit. It's a complete fabrication by the feminist narrative, right? So when a man embraces vulnerability or refuses to strengthen that vulnerability, he's basically remaining weak and thus by definition less masculine. And if he's less masculine, how in the hell are you going to keep your masculine frame? Simple as that. So if the typical scenario where somebody is telling me or arguing with me in my comments how to be vulnerable, you're just being more emotionally open and you're spewing your complaints and your concerns and your anxieties to your wife or girlfriend, and she is, even if she thinks that's what she wants, she is losing confidence in you as a man as you go. And so 2 years, 5 years, 10 years later, you're divorced and she's off with somebody else and everything's a freaking train wreck. And you're asking yourself why? Because you were vulnerable. You need to be the protector and the provider, the man that is strong. And you think you're being intimate, emotionally intimate. And here you are over just spewing all your anxieties on your woman that really is looking to you for support. And you just totally undercut yourself as a strong man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one thing that so many guys, especially like I would say blue pill guys, they can't wrap their brain around the concept that your woman's not your best friend.
Hell no.
And she's certainly not your mom or your therapist. And women, like Rich Cooper says, right? Women don't give a shit about your struggles, right? They think they do, and I think, like, to women's credit, they think they do, and I think they really want to care. They just biologically won't ever be able to. And so when you start doing that, it just slowly erodes attraction over time, and they're just like, I don't know why, but this guy's just not attractive to me anymore, and a lot of it's because of this type of stuff. So
exactly.
Yeah. So, which also comes down to awareness and all that kind of stuff. So, man, this is a great conversation. Where can people find you online?
Graybeard Actual, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I'm on Twitter. I don't do much, to be honest, on Twitter. I just post memes. Not had a lot of success there. So
Twitter's a tough nut to crack, man.
Yeah, and I don't get it. And YouTube, I can go for a week or more and have thousands of views each video, and then turn around and I'm getting 100 or 500 views. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, so I'm going to be starting some kind of subscription level service kind of stuff pretty soon. And I'm doing a live on Instagram. I'm doing a live every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central. And on my subscription thing, either starting this week or next week, I'm going to do a members only Thursday night, kind of a Zoom thing that's really basically just live for members only. So yeah, Instagram, probably the best place to find me, and find the link tree and go from there.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put your link tree down in the description.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Ray, thanks again for joining me, man. You're welcome back anytime. It's always good to have you on and to catch up. You know what I mean? You're a good dude to know. And the topic of frame is so very important in this space. A lot of guys just have a hard time understanding what it even means, wrapping their brain around it. Ryan Stone describes it as a tetrahedron. And I think he got that from someone else too, because Brother Luis posted about it in the 3% Brotherhood the other day. And Brother Luis usually is posting old Red Pill stuff. So not sure if Ryan came up with that or if he is just resharing that, because Ryan does a lot of that stuff, right? He brings back the old information and sort of rewords it. He's really good about that. We all do that, right? For the most part, none of this stuff is original, right? We all learn from somebody, right? And we just sort of put our own spin on it, our own experiences. So that's, Ryan's really good at that. And that doesn't take anything away from his material. Like Ryan, I learned a lot of stuff from Ryan, right? He's a smart guy. All right. That being said, if you guys haven't done so already, please like, subscribe, hit those notifications, drop a comment. Any comment will do. Your favorite emoji. If you guys are listening on your favorite audio platform of choice, give us a 5-star review and write down why you like the show, and I'll share that in an upcoming episode. Follow me on social media. The links are in the description. Get on the email list, list.comeonmanpod.com. It's managed by Gumroad now. It's a flawless experience. So get on the email list, sign up. I will mail you stickers free of charge. If you guys like those designs, they're available as merch as well at merch.comeonmanpod.com. Check out the Practical Law of Attraction course, loa.comeonmanpod.com. And then get on the Patreon, patreon.com/comeonmanpod. You can join for as little as $10, and you can now even join tier 1 as a free trial, right? Pretty cool. I think that's all I have for this episode, guys. We will see you Wednesday for the live stream.
This has been the Come On Man podcast. New full episodes served hot every Monday morning on your favorite podcast platform of choice. So subscribe now. Follow Paul on social media. The links are in the description. Now, go out and get it.